Ambassador Sarah Chen walked through the tall doors of the Galactic Council chambers. The massive room stretched out before her like a giant bowl. Thousands of seats rose up in circles, each one filled with beings from across the galaxy. Some looked like giant insects. Others had blue skin and 4 arms. A few floated in tanks of water, but they all had one thing in common. They looked at humans like they were children. Sarah took her place at the small human section. Just 50 seats in a room of thousands. She had been doing this job for 10 years now. Every day was the same. The council would vote on things. The humans would try to speak. The council would ignore them or laugh. Today was supposed to be different. Today the council was voting on the Outer Rim territories. These were new worlds that human ships had found. Human explorers had mapped them. Human scientists had studied them. But the council wanted to control who could live there. "The motion before us today," announced the speaker, a tall being with gray skin and no hair, "concerns the Outer Rim territories. These dangerous regions require careful management by experienced species." Sarah stood up. Her voice carried across the chamber through the translation systems. "Honorable council members, humanity discovered these worlds. We have spent 20 years mapping safe travel routes. Our people have died exploring these regions. We ask only for fair access to settle there." A sound like laughter came from the Zalathi section. High Curator Vexhai rose from his seat. He was tall and thin with silver skin that seemed to glow. When he spoke, his voice was smooth but cold. "Young Ambassador Chen," he said, "humans have been part of this council for only 150 years. That is nothing. My people have guided galactic affairs for over 10,000 years. We understand things that humans cannot." More laughter came from around the chamber. Sarah felt her face grow hot, but she kept her voice steady. "Curator Vexhai, in those 150 years, humanity has shared freely with all council species. Our medical knowledge has saved millions of lives. Our farming methods feed billions. Our technology powers your cities. We ask only to be treated as equals." A Korthan general stood up. The Korthan looked like huge bears, but with 6 arms and thick armor covering their bodies. "Humans are too emotional," he growled. "Too quick to act. They need proper guidance from wiser species." Sarah looked around the chamber. She saw the same expression on thousands of faces: amusement, superiority, dismissal. These beings saw humans as pets that had learned to speak. "I call for the vote," announced the speaker. The voting began. Each species had votes based on their age and power. The Zalathi had the most, over 200 votes. The Korthan had 150. Dozens of other species had between 5 and 50 votes each. Humans had exactly 1 vote. The results appeared on the giant screen above the chamber. 847 votes to restrict human access to the Outer Rim. 1 vote against. The chamber erupted in pleased sounds from the alien species. Sarah stood quietly in the middle of it all. Her team of advisors sat behind her, their faces showing the same tired disappointment they had felt so many times before. High Curator Vexhai stood again. "Perhaps now the humans will understand," he said, his voice carrying easily over the noise. "Some species are meant to lead. Others are meant to follow. It is the natural order." Sarah walked slowly to the center of the chamber floor. The noise died down as the aliens wondered what she was doing. She had never done this before. "For 150 years," she began, her voice clear and strong, "humanity has participated in this council. We have followed every rule. We have respected every decision. We have shared our knowledge, our resources, our discoveries." She turned slowly, looking at each major section of the chamber. "We asked only for fairness, for the chance to be heard, for the right to grow as a species. Today you have shown us that fairness is not something we can earn. It is something you choose to give or withhold." The chamber was completely quiet now. No one had ever spoken to the council this way. "We came here believing in democracy, in working together, in building a better galaxy for all species. But this is not democracy. This is not cooperation. This is dominance disguised as wisdom." Sarah reached into her jacket and pulled out a small device. She pressed a button, and her words began broadcasting on all human communication channels across the galaxy. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from all Galactic Council activities. We will no longer send representatives to these chambers. We will no longer participate in council votes. We will no longer abide by council decisions that affect human worlds. The silence in the chamber was complete. Nothing like this had ever happened before. No species had ever left the council. We do not do this in anger, Sarah continued. We do this in disappointment. You have taught us that there is no place for equals at your table, only servants and masters. She looked directly at High Curator Vexhai. You said some species are meant to lead and others to follow. You are right. We choose to lead ourselves. Sarah turned and walked toward the exit. Her team followed behind her. As they reached the doors, Vexhai's voice called out across the chamber. You will be back within a year begging for readmission. Humans cannot survive without council guidance. Sarah stopped at the doorway. Without turning around, she raised her hand. The translation systems interpreted it as a farewell gesture. But the humans watching the broadcast knew better. Some even smiled. Goodbye, Curator, Sarah said simply and walked out. The human ships began leaving Nexus Prime within hours. By the end of the day, every human representative, diplomat, and staff member was gone. The human embassy building stood empty. Across the galaxy, the reaction was swift but predictable. News broadcasts mocked humanity's tantrum. Editorial writers predicted humans would return within months, desperate and humble. On the Zilathi homeworld, government officials laughed at dinner parties about the human rebellion. On Korthon military bases, officers made jokes about emotional species and their childish behavior. But in the human sectors of space, something different was happening. Ships were moving. Resources were being gathered. Communications were being encrypted. Humanity was not crawling back in defeat. They were preparing for something entirely different. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the transport ship taking her back to Earth. Through the windows, she could see the lights of Nexus Prime growing smaller behind them. Ma'am, said her aide, the president is asking for a full report. The media wants interviews. Everyone wants to know what happens next. Sarah smiled for the first time in months. Tell them we're going home. Tell them we have work to do. The ship jumped to hyperspace, leaving the Galactic Council behind. In the chambers they had abandoned, the aliens were still debating what the human withdrawal meant. They would find out soon enough. 3 months had passed since the humans walked out of the Galactic Council chambers. Across the galaxy, the reaction was mostly amusement. News shows played clips of Ambassador Chen's speech, adding funny sound effects and commentary. The human tantrum, they called it. The great human sulk. On Zilathi Prime, the capital world of the most powerful species in the Council, citizens watched the news broadcast with entertainment. High Curator Vexhai appeared on the most popular talk show, his silver skin gleaming under the studio lights. Humans are like children, he told the host, who had 4 eyes and skin like tree bark. They get upset when they don't get their way. But children always come back when they get hungry. The studio audience made sounds that the translators identified as laughter. But not everyone was laughing anymore. Dr. Silith worked in the largest hospital on Zilathi Prime. She had been a doctor for over 300 years. In the past decade, her job had become much easier because of human medicines. The humans had developed new antibiotics that worked better than anything the Zilathi had ever created. The medicines were cheap, effective, and saved thousands of lives every day. Dr. Silith had never thought much about where they came from. Medicine was medicine, until the shipment didn't arrive. I'm sorry, Doctor, said the supply coordinator, a young Zilathi with nervous movements. The human pharmaceutical company sent us a message. All contracts with non-human entities have been terminated. Dr. Silith stared at him. Terminated? What does that mean? It means they're not selling to us anymore. The message said something about Directive 2387 Alpha, and no further business will be conducted. In the children's ward, Dr. Silith watched young patients struggle with infections that the human medicines could have cured easily. The old Zilathi treatments worked, but they were slower and had more side effects. Can't we just order from someone else? Asked a nurse. Dr. Silith checked her computer. Every human medical company in the galaxy had sent the same message. All contracts terminated. No explanation. No negotiation. Just silence. Similar problems were happening across Council space. General Korthak commanded the 3rd Battle Fleet of the Korthon Federation. His ships had won 3 major victories in the past year against rebel systems that refused to pay taxes to the Council. Those victories had been possible because of human-designed tactical software. The humans made the best computer programs for military use. Their targeting systems were incredibly accurate. Their battle planning software could predict enemy movements better than any Korthan general. General Korthak had never understood how the software worked. He didn't need to. He just needed it to work, until it stopped working. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, a younger Korthan with scars from many battles. "The targeting system is malfunctioning. It's missing targets by hundreds of meters." General Korthak growled, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Fix it." "We've tried, sir. The human technicians aren't responding to our calls. When we try to access the software, we get error messages." "What kind of error messages?" The tactical officer looked uncomfortable. "The message says license expired. Please contact your human technical representative for renewal." General Korthak tried to contact the human company that made the software. The response was automated and brief. "Per Directive 2387 Alpha, all technical support for non-human clients has been discontinued. On Vale Prime, the bureaucratic center of the galaxy, the problems were different but just as serious. The Vale Collective prided themselves on running the most efficient government systems in known space. They could process 1 billion forms in a single day. Their efficiency depended on computer systems designed by human programmers. The humans had a talent for making complicated things simple and fast things faster. Administrator Quill noticed the slowdown first. Forms that usually processed in minutes were taking hours. Database searches that once happened instantly now took forever. "The human-designed systems are degrading," reported the chief technician, a Vale with tentacles instead of arms. "It's like they're falling apart without maintenance." Administrator Quill tried to contact the human programming companies. The response was always the same. All contracts terminated, no further support. The Vale tried to fix the systems themselves, but human programming was more sophisticated than anyone had realized. It was like trying to repair a complex machine without understanding how any of the parts worked. Captain Zara Okafor sat in her office on Earth. As humanity's new director of external affairs, she was responsible for all contact with alien species. Her job was mostly answering the same question over and over again. "When are you coming back?" The question came from Zalathi diplomats, Korthan military officers, Vale administrators, and dozens of other species. They all wanted to know when humanity would return to the Council. Captain Okafor's response was always the same. She would appear on communication screens across the galaxy, her dark skin and calm expression never changing. "Humanity wishes all Council species well in their future endeavors," she would say. "We will focus our efforts inward, on our own development and the well-being of our colonies. We have no further comment at this time, no demands, no angry speeches, no threats or ultimatums. Just professional, polite disengagement." The aliens found this more disturbing than if humans had been shouting and making threats. On Nexus Prime, emergency council sessions were becoming common. The chamber that had once been filled with confident laughter now buzzed with worried conversations. "They can't just disappear," insisted a representative from the Aquatic Federation, speaking through a water-filled translation device. "Species don't just withdraw from galactic civilization." High Curator Vexhai stood at his usual place, but his silver skin seemed less bright than before. "This is temporary," he announced. "Humans are emotional creatures. They will realize their mistake in return." But privately, he was less confident. Intelligence reports from Zalathi space showed human activity in unexpected places. Human ships were moving through space routes that the Council didn't control. Human colonies were expanding into regions that the Council had never claimed. Most disturbing of all, the humans were trading with non-Council species. Aliens that the Council considered too primitive or too dangerous for membership were suddenly doing business with humanity. "What are they up to?" Vexhai asked his advisors during a private meeting. The answers were troubling. Human construction projects in the Outer Rim territories, the same territories the Council had voted to restrict them from. Massive shipyards building vessels of unknown design, research facilities working on technologies that Council scientists didn't recognize. "They're building something," reported the head of Zalathi intelligence, "but we don't know what." General Korthak was more direct in his assessment. "They're preparing for war," he told a gathering of military leaders from across Council space. But Captain Okafor's public statements suggested otherwise. When asked directly about human military preparations, she had smiled slightly. Humanity has no interest in conflict with Council species, she had said. We are focused on building, not destroying. The problem was that no one knew what humanity was building. Ships sent to investigate human activities in the Outer Rim were turned away politely, but firmly. Human patrol vessels would intercept Council scouts at the edge of human space and deliver the same message. Thank you for your interest in human space. However, Council vessels are not permitted beyond this point. Please enjoy safe travels, no hostility. No weapons fired. Just calm, professional exclusion. The silence from humanity was becoming deafening. Other species began to notice that their human neighbors, co-workers, and business partners were quietly leaving Council space. Human families packed up their homes on alien worlds. Human businesses closed their doors. Human students left alien universities. They all gave the same explanation. We're going home. But intelligence reports suggested they weren't all going to Earth. Many were heading to colonies in the Outer Rim, places the Council couldn't monitor. In the Council chambers, representatives from minor species began asking uncomfortable questions. What if they don't come back? Asked the delegate from the crystalline worlds. The chamber fell silent. No one had considered that possibility. High Curator Vexhai stood slowly. They will come back, he said. But for the first time in his long career, he wasn't sure he believed his own words. Across the galaxy, the humans continued their quiet withdrawal, and in that silence, something new was growing. 8 months had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. What had started as isolated problems for individual species was now affecting the entire galaxy. Trade routes that had run smoothly for decades were falling apart. The humans had managed many of the logistics networks that moved goods between star systems. Their computer programs calculated the most efficient paths. Their coordinators solved problems when shipments got delayed. Without them, cargo ships sat in spaceports for days waiting for clearance. Deliveries that used to take weeks now took months. Food spoiled in transit. Important medicines expired before reaching their destinations. Captain Vorth of the merchant vessel Star Trader had been shipping goods across Council space for 30 years. His cargo bay was full of rare metals from the mining worlds of the Helix sector, bound for the manufacturing centers of the core worlds. The trip should have taken 15 days. It had already taken 40. The coordination computers are down again, his navigation officer reported. The officer was a Zentari with blue fur and large eyes. The backup systems keep crashing, Captain Vorth growled in frustration. He was a Korthon, built for fighting, not for dealing with broken computers. Can't you fix them? Sir, these are human-designed systems. None of us understand how they work. The instruction manuals are in human languages, and the technical support channels have been disconnected. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. The humans hadn't just taken their people when they left. They had taken their knowledge. On the agricultural world of Verdant III, the harvest was failing. The planet's food production fed 12 star systems, but the crops were dying from diseases that should have been easily preventable. Administrator Yish walked through fields of withered plants. She was a Zelathi, her silver skin dulled by worry. For the past 5 years, human agricultural experts had helped them improve their farming methods. The human techniques had doubled their crop yields and eliminated most plant diseases. What happened? She asked the chief farmer, a local with green skin and 4 arms. The humans taught us how to mix the soil treatments, he explained, but they never told us why those mixtures work. When the formulas stopped working, we didn't know how to fix them. Administrator Yish checked her records. The human agricultural consultants had left Verdant III 6 months ago. They had taken all their equipment, all their research data, and all their knowledge with them. The planet's government had tried to hire human experts from other companies, but the response was always the same. Per Directive 2387 Alpha, no services will be provided to non-human entities. The Korthon Federation was facing even more serious problems. Their military had suffered 3 defeats in recent months. Rebel systems that should have been easy to crush were successfully resisting Korthon fleets. General Korthak stood in his command center, staring at tactical displays that showed his latest failure. His forces had outnumbered the rebels 5-1, but the rebels had outmaneuvered him at every turn. How did they know our battle plans? He demanded. His intelligence chief, a scarred veteran of dozens of campaigns, looked uncomfortable. Sir, it appears they have better tactical software than we do. Better software? They're rebels. They have no resources. Sir, intelligence reports suggest they've acquired human-designed military systems, the same type we used to rely on. General Korthak felt cold anger building in his chest. Are you telling me the humans are arming our enemies? Not exactly, sir. It appears they're selling their military software to anyone who can pay. They're not choosing sides. They're just doing business. The general tried to contact human military contractors to buy updated software for his own forces. The response was the same as always. All contracts terminated. Meanwhile, in the Outer Rim territories that the Council had tried to restrict humans from accessing, something unprecedented was happening. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Park of the Council Exploration Service was leading a routine survey mission. Her ship, the Far Horizon, had been sent to investigate reports of unusual activity in the restricted sectors. What they found defied explanation. Captain, reported her sensor officer, a veil with tentacle fingers dancing over his control panel. I'm detecting structures on the fourth planet of this system. Commander Park studied the sensor readings. Structures? This system was supposed to be uninhabited. According to our charts, yes. But I'm reading cities, spaceports, industrial facilities. This planet has a thriving civilization. The Far Horizon entered orbit around the planet. What they saw through the viewscreen amazed them. Below was a world covered with gleaming cities, green farmlands, and busy spaceports. Ships moved between orbital stations and the planet's surface. Open communications, Commander Park ordered. A friendly voice responded in perfect galactic standard. Greetings, Council Vessel Far Horizon. This is New Eden Orbital Control. How can we assist you? This is Lieutenant Commander Park of the Council Exploration Service. We were not aware this system was inhabited. What species are you? There was a pause. Then the voice returned, sounding amused. We're human, Commander, along with Rigelian refugees, Free Cedian colonists, and several other species. We're an independent colony. Commander Park felt confused. Independent? But this system is in Council space. Actually, Commander, according to our charts, this system is in the Outer Rim territories. The same territories your Council voted to restrict human access to. We've been here for 6 months. The Far Horizon was politely invited to dock at the orbital station. Commander Park found herself walking through corridors filled with humans, but also species she had never seen before. A human woman greeted them at the airlock. She was middle-aged with short gray hair and friendly eyes. Welcome to New Eden. I'm Director Chen. No relation to Ambassador Chen, though we get that question a lot. Commander Park looked around the station. It was clean, efficient, and bustling with activity. How is this possible? 6 months ago, this system was empty. Director Chen smiled. Humans work fast when we're motivated. Would you like a tour? What Commander Park saw during that tour would haunt her for the rest of her career. The humans hadn't just built a colony. They had built a thriving civilization. The planet below housed 3 million people from dozens of different species. The humans had invited refugees, outcasts, and anyone willing to work together as equals. There were no servants and masters here. Everyone contributed according to their abilities. These Rigelians, Commander Park said, pointing to tall, thin beings with blue skin. I thought they were extinct. Nearly extinct, Director Chen corrected. The Council wrote them off when their homeworld was destroyed by a solar flare. We found survivors scattered across the galaxy and gave them a new home. The technology on New Eden was impressive. Fusion reactors provided clean energy. Advanced manufacturing systems produced everything the colony needed. Medical facilities used a combination of human knowledge and alien techniques. Where did you get the resources to build all this? Commander Park asked. Trade, Director Chen said simply. We've established relationships with dozens of non-Council species. Turns out there's a whole galaxy of civilizations that the Council never bothered to contact. Commander Park's communications officer, who had remained quiet during the tour, finally spoke up. Director Chen, are you planning to challenge Council authority? Director Chen looked genuinely surprised. Challenge them? Why would we do that? The Council is welcome to govern Council space however they choose. We're not in Council space, but the Council claims jurisdiction over these territories. The council claims a lot of things, Director Chen replied gently. That doesn't make them true. The far horizon left New Eden with more questions than answers. Commander Park's report to Council headquarters described a human colony that was completely outside Council control and apparently thriving. More disturbing reports followed. Other survey missions found similar colonies throughout the Outer Rim. Some were purely human. Others were mixed settlements of humans and alien refugees. All of them politely declined Council authority. On Nexus Prime, emergency Council sessions were becoming daily events. The chamber buzzed with worried conversations in hundreds of languages. High Curator Vexhai stood before the assembled representatives, his silver skin pale with stress. Fellow Council members, we face an unprecedented situation. The humans have not simply withdrawn from our civilization, they appear to be building a competing one. The chamber erupted in shocked sounds from dozens of species. They're stealing our potential members, shouted the representative from the hegemony worlds. They're creating illegal colonies in restricted space, added a Korthon general. They're disrupting established trade routes, complained a merchant prince from the Trading Federation. Vexhai raised his hand for silence. The question before us is simple. What do we do about it? The answers varied wildly. Some wanted to send military forces to shut down the human colonies. Others suggested negotiating with human leadership. A few proposed economic sanctions, but a growing number of representatives were asking a different question. What if the humans were right? The representative from the Minor Worlds Alliance, a collection of small species that had little power in the Council, stood up slowly. 14 months after humanity's withdrawal, the Galactic Council was facing its worst crisis in recorded history. What had started as amusement at human stubbornness had become genuine fear about the future of galactic civilization. The crisis deepened when Ambassador Quillith of the Hegemony of Distant Suns requested an emergency meeting with High Curator Vexhai. The hegemony represented 12 species that had been trying to join the Galactic Council for over 50 years. Their application had been under review for decades. Vexhai received the ambassador in his private chambers on Nexus Prime. Quillith was a dignified being with crystal-like skin that refracted light into beautiful patterns. Her species had been waiting longer than most for council membership. High Curator, she began, her voice creating musical tones, I have come to inform you that the Hegemony of Distant Suns is withdrawing our application for council membership. Vexhai nearly dropped his ceremonial drink. Withdrawing? But your species have worked toward membership for generations. Indeed we have, Quillith replied calmly. And in 50 years, we have received nothing but delays, conditions, and promises of future consideration. Yesterday, we received a different offer. She activated a holographic display that showed a document written in both hegemony script and human standard. The humans have invited us to join something called the Independent Systems Alliance. Equal representation, equal voting rights, no probationary periods, no cultural compatibility tests. Vexhai studied the document. This is impossible. The humans can't just create their own galactic government, can't they? Quillith asked. High Curator, in the 14 months since humanity left your council, they have accomplished more than we have seen in centuries of council leadership. They have rescued dying species, established thriving colonies, and created trade networks that actually benefit all participants. She stood to leave. The Hegemony Council voted unanimously yesterday. We are joining the Independent Systems Alliance. We will not spend another 50 years begging for scraps from your table when the humans offer us seats as equals. Within a week, 3 minor council species announced they were leaving to join the ISA. The Aquatic Federation, the Crystal Worlds Collective, and the Nomad Fleet Alliance all submitted formal withdrawal notices. The stated reasons were similar: frustration with council bureaucracy, desire for equal representation, and attraction to the ISA's promise of genuine cooperation. General Korthak convened an emergency meeting of military leaders from across council space. The conference room in the Nexus Prime military complex was filled with the galaxy's most experienced officers. We have a rebellion on our hands, the general announced. The humans have created a shadow government and are actively recruiting our members. Admiral Talish of the Zalathi Naval Command was a veteran of 3 galactic conflicts. Her silver skin bore the scars of many battles. General Korthak, our intelligence reports are disturbing. The humans have not simply built colonies. They have built a complete civilization. She activated a holographic display showing the known galaxy. Blue dots marked council territories. Red dots marked human settlements and ISA member worlds. As you can see, Admiral Tellish continued, the ISA now controls approximately 40% of inhabited space. More importantly, they control many of the key trade routes and resource-rich systems. The display showed shipping lanes, mining operations, and industrial centers. A disturbing pattern emerged. Many of the galaxy's most important economic assets were now in ISA territory. How is this possible? Demanded a Korthon colonel. 14 months ago, the humans had barely 100 worlds. They've been planning this for years, Admiral Tillish replied grimly. Our analysis suggests that human explorers and traders have been secretly establishing relationships throughout the galaxy. When they withdrew from the Council, they activated a network we never knew existed. General Korthak stood and began pacing, his massive form casting shadows across the room. Then we shut them down. Military action. Decisive force. Against whom? Asked Admiral Tillish. The ISA has no central capital, no single government to defeat. They operate as a network of independent systems that support each other. Attack one and you attack them all. She highlighted several systems on the display. Moreover, our war games suggest that ISA military capabilities may exceed our own. They've been trading advanced weapons technology freely among their members. Meanwhile, our own systems are still degraded from the loss of human technical support. The meeting continued for hours, but reached no clear conclusions. The military leaders were discovering what the politicians already knew. There was no easy solution to the human problem. On Earth, Captain Zara Okafor was hosting a very different kind of meeting. The conference room in Geneva was filled with representatives from dozens of species. Some were humans from various colonies. Others were aliens who had joined the ISA. But the most interesting guests were the species that no one had ever heard of before. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings, Captain Okafor began, welcome to the first annual ISA Development Conference. Today we're sharing the results of our first year as an independent alliance. The statistics she presented were impressive. ISA territory now included over 300 inhabited worlds. Trade volume had increased by 400%. Scientific advancement had accelerated dramatically as species shared knowledge freely. But our greatest achievement, Okafor continued, has been the integration of previously unknown species into galactic civilization. She gestured to a section of the room filled with beings that Council intelligence had never catalogued. The singers of Harmony Thur, who communicate through music and have revolutionized our understanding of quantum mechanics. The deep thinkers from the methane worlds, whose mathematical insights have advanced our computing technology by decades. The star dancers whose ships can navigate hyperspace routes we never thought possible. A representative from the Crystal Worlds Collective, one of the recent Council defectors, stood up. Captain Okafor, how did you make contact with these species? The Council's exploration services never found them. Okafor smiled. We asked different questions. Instead of looking for species that met our requirements, we looked for species that had something to offer. Instead of judging civilizations by our standards, we learned from their unique perspectives. She activated a display showing the galaxy from the ISA perspective. The Council maps the galaxy as territory to be controlled. We map it as communities to be connected. The difference was striking. Where Council charts showed political boundaries and resource claims, ISA maps showed trade relationships, cultural exchanges, and collaborative projects. Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, intelligence reports were painting an alarming picture of human activities. Agent Korath was the Zalathi Empire's best spy. She had spent 6 months infiltrating human space, using false identities to visit ISA worlds. Her report to High Curator Vexhai was comprehensive and deeply troubling. Curator, she began, the humans have not simply created a competing government. They have created a competing way of life. She described cities where dozens of species lived and worked together as equals. Schools where human children learned alongside alien classmates. Research facilities where scientists from different worlds collaborated on projects that would have taken the Council decades to approve. Most disturbing, Agent Korath continued, is their attitude toward new members. Where the Council requires years of evaluation, cultural adaptation, and probationary membership, The ISA welcomes new species immediately. They provide aid, technology, and support without conditions. Vexhai interrupted. Surely there must be requirements, obligations, loyalty oaths? Only one, Agent Korath replied. New members must commit to treating all other members as equals. That's it. No cultural changes required. No technology transfers demanded. No tribute or taxes. The report continued with details about ISA military capabilities. Human ships were smaller than Council vessels, but faster and more advanced. ISA fleets operated with coordination and efficiency that Council forces couldn't match. They're not building an empire, Agent Korath concluded. They're building a community, and it's working. The final blow came when internal rebellions began within Council space itself. On Zalathi colony worlds, local governments declared independence and petitioned to join the ISA. Korthon outer territories stopped paying taxes to the central government. Even more shocking, some of the rebellions were led by Council species themselves, not by human agitators. On the mining world of Kepler-7, the local Zalathi governor faced a crowd of protesters demanding independence. The protesters included Zalathi, Korthon, humans, and several other species working together. Governor Thresh called out the protest leader, a young Zalathi with bright silver skin. We demand the right to govern ourselves. We want to join the Independent Systems Alliance. Governor Thresh was an old guard Zalathi who had served the Empire for 3 centuries. You are citizens of the Zalathi Empire, he declared. You cannot simply choose to leave. Why not? Asked the protest leader. The humans did. The hegemony worlds did. Half the galaxy is doing it. Why can't we? The governor had no good answer. Within a week, Kepler-7 had declared independence. 2 years after humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Council, the galaxy looked completely different. The great chamber on Nexus Prime that once held thousands of representatives now sat half empty. Many seats that had been filled for millennia were vacant, their former occupants having joined the Independent Systems Alliance. Captain Zara Okafor stood at the podium in the ISA Congress Hall on New Geneva, humanity's diplomatic capital in the Outer Rim. The hall was smaller than the council chambers but filled with energy. Representatives from over 200 species sat together, their voices creating a symphony of different languages and sounds. Unlike the rigid hierarchy of the council chambers, the ISA hall was designed as a circle. No species sat above others. No ancient empires commanded special positions. Every member had an equal voice. Friends and colleagues, Captain Okafor began. Her words automatically translated into hundreds of languages. 2 years ago, humanity made a difficult choice. We walked away from a system that we believed was broken. Today I want to share what we've built together. The statistics she presented would have seemed impossible 2 years earlier. The ISA now included 350 inhabited worlds. Scientific cooperation had led to breakthrough discoveries in medicine, physics, and engineering. Trade between member worlds had increased by 800%. But numbers don't tell the whole story, Okafor continued. What we've truly accomplished is proving that different species can work together as equals. In the audience sat beings that the old Galactic Council had never even known existed. The Harmony Singers had developed new methods of faster-than-light communication. The deep ocean dwellers had created underwater cities that served as refuges for aquatic species. The Star Wanderers, nomads who lived entirely in space, had established mobile trading posts that connected distant parts of the galaxy. Near the back of the hall, a small group of observers watched quietly. They wore the formal robes of council diplomats, and their presence had been the subject of much debate. High Curator Vexhai sat among them, his once bright silver skin now showing the wear of 2 years of crisis. Beside him were Admiral Tellish, General Korthak, and other high-ranking council officials. They had come to hear humanity's terms for ending the crisis that was tearing the galaxy apart. But as Captain Okafor continued her presentation, it became clear that humanity wasn't offering terms. They were simply explaining what they had built. The Independent Systems Alliance operates on 3 simple principles, Okafor explained. First, all members are equal regardless of age, size, or technology level. Second, cooperation is voluntary, not enforced. Third, knowledge and resources are shared freely for the benefit of all. She activated a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. Blue areas marked ICE territory. Red areas showed the remaining council space. A growing number of yellow areas indicated neutral systems that traded with both sides. The map told a story that would have horrified council leaders 2 years earlier. Acid territory now covered more than half the galaxy. The council controlled the oldest, most established systems, but the ISA had claimed most of the frontier worlds where new civilizations were emerging. "We don't see this as competition," Okafor said. Looking directly at the council observers, the galaxy is vast enough for multiple approaches to interstellar cooperation. Some species may prefer the council's traditional methods. Others find our approach more suitable. After her presentation, the formal session ended and delegates began to mingle. Captain Okafor made her way to the council observers, who stood uncomfortably in the center of activity like rocks in a stream. "High Curator Vex High," she said with genuine warmth. "Thank you for coming. I hope our presentation was informative." Vex High studied her carefully. 2 years ago, he had dismissed humans as emotional children. Now he was forced to acknowledge that this human had helped reshape galactic civilization. "Captain Okafor," he replied formally. "The Council seeks to understand your intentions. Are you attempting to replace us as the galaxy's governing authority?" Okafor looked genuinely surprised. "Replace you? Why would we want to do that? The Council serves its members well, from what I understand. We're simply serving the species that the Council couldn't accommodate." General Korthak stepped forward, his massive form towering over the human captain. "You've stolen our members. You've disrupted our authority. You've created chaos across the galaxy." "General," Okafor replied calmly, "no one has been stolen. Every species that joined us made that choice freely. As for chaos," she gestured around the bustling hall, "this looks like order to me." Admiral Tellish, the most diplomatic of the Council observers, spoke carefully. "Captain, surely there must be some way to resolve this conflict. The galaxy cannot remain divided indefinitely." "What conflict?" Okafor asked. "The ISA has no quarrel with the Council. We don't claim Council territory. We don't challenge Council authority in Council space. We simply offer an alternative for species that want something different." She paused, then continued with a slight smile. "Admiral, there are millions of inhabited worlds in this galaxy. The Council controls perhaps 10,000 of them. The ISA has 350. That leaves plenty of room for everyone." The conversation was interrupted by a commotion near the hall's entrance. A delegation of unfamiliar beings was entering, escorted by ISA security. They were tall, graceful creatures with flowing robes and faces that seemed to shift like smoke. "Ah," Okafor said. "Perfect timing. High Curator, I'd like you to meet the Ethereal Collective. They represent a civilization from the galactic core that has been observing both the Council and the ISA for the past year." The lead Ethereal approached with movements like a gentle breeze. When it spoke, its voice was like wind chimes. "Greetings, beings of matter and energy. We have come to announce our decision." Vex High felt a cold chill. The Ethereal Collective was legendary, an ancient civilization that rarely interacted with younger species. If they were choosing sides, the Ethereal Collective has observed the governing methods of both the Council and the Alliance, the being continued. "We have decided to establish formal relations with the Independent Systems Alliance. Their approach to cooperation aligns with our values of voluntary association and mutual respect." The announcement sent ripples through the hall. The Ethereals were older and more advanced than even the Zalathi. Their endorsement of the ISA was a powerful symbol. After the Ethereals departed, the Council delegation found themselves alone with Captain Okafor in a quiet side chamber. "What do you want from us?" Vex High asked bluntly. "What are your demands?" Okafor sat down and gestured for the others to do the same. "High Curator, we don't have demands. We never did. 2 years ago, humanity asked to be treated as equals in the Council. You said no, so we left and built something where we could be equals." "But surely," Admiral Tellish pressed, "there must be some way to reunify galactic civilization." "Why?" Okafor asked. "The galaxy was never unified. The Council controlled some systems. Independent worlds existed outside Council space. The only difference now is that the independent worlds have organized themselves." She leaned back in her chair. "If the Council wants to change how it operates, that's your choice. If you want to establish diplomatic relations with the ISA, we're open to that. If you want to continue as you always have, that's fine too." General Korthak couldn't contain his frustration. You're destroying the galactic order that has existed for millennia. General, Okafor replied gently, we're not destroying anything. We're just not participating in it anymore. The meeting ended without resolution, but it marked a turning point. Over the following months, the relationship between the Council and the ISA slowly stabilized. Some Council species, particularly the more progressive ones, established associate relationships with the ISA while maintaining their Council membership. Trade agreements were signed. Scientific cooperation resumed on specific projects. The Zalathi Empire, facing continued rebellions in their outer territories, grudgingly began treating the ISA as equals in diplomatic negotiations. The Korthon Federation found that their military was more effective when they could purchase advanced ISA weapons and technology. High Curator Vex High, once the undisputed voice of galactic civilization, adapted to a new reality where he was one leader among many. It was humbling, but he discovered that the galaxy functioned just as well with multiple centers of power. The final scene of this transformation took place not in government halls or military headquarters, but in a small school on the frontier world of Hope's End. The classroom was filled with children from a dozen different species. Human kids sat next to young Zalathi with silver skin. Korthon cubs played with ethereal wisps of energy. A teacher, herself a refugee from a failed council world, helped them work together on a science project. Today, she told her mixed class, we're going to learn about the 3 laws of physics that work the same everywhere in the galaxy. It doesn't matter if you're from Earth or Zalathi Prime or the Crystal Worlds. These laws apply to everyone equally. One of the human children raised her hand. Teacher, why do some grown-ups think some people are better than others? The teacher smiled sadly. That's a very good question, Sarah.